Welcome to another episode, everyone. There in Corcoran State Prison, the Native Americans and the brothers came together and attacked the whites there on CR. The Native Americans on the yard in Corcoran, I really don't recall seeing this anywhere else, even though it may be in other places as well, were able to use sage or smoke sage right there on the yard. For whatever reason, they only smoked it at nighttime when it got dark. And there in Corcoran, it was a level 3 yard. So they had night yard every night. And the Native Americans, the administration had stopped them from using sage. But then they had filed some paperwork, they had appealed it, and they were granted the right to smoke sage legally right there on the yard. Now, I don't know what sage is, other than to say that it has a similar smell to the greenery. And I guess it's supposed to do something to you too, like the greenery does, like the Snoop Dogg does. When you smoke it, it's supposed to, I'm not sure if it gives you a lift, gives you a high in the same way that the greenery does or not. I don't know, but it's supposed to do something. I don't know. Maybe y'all can let me know in the comments. But I know that the Native Americans were the only ones allowed to use this sage there on the yard. And they can do it openly. I guess it was a part of their heritage, a part of their tradition. Whatever it was, the administration had to acknowledge it. And they let them proceed with using the sage there on the yard. So you will walk around the yard at nighttime and you will see clouds of smoke right there where the Native Americans were at. It was only 4 or 5 of them on the yard. But they would be right there, bunched up together, with like a little fire going on the yard, smoking sage, big smoke, clouds of smoke. Police pass right by and don't say nothing, don't do nothing. It was allowed for them. And the Native Americans were not necessarily with the black community as far as, hanging out with the blacks on the yard. They did their thing. They had their own community, their own car, their own faction, even though it was just 4 or 5 of them, and they stuck together and they minded their own business. It was about 16, 17 whites on the yard. And one of them, at least one, had a serious problem with illegal substances. And when he couldn't get his hands on any at any particular time, he would go and try to seek sage from the Native Americans under, the belief that the sage would get him intoxicated. And he was just a fiend, a dope fiend, so he wanted to get his hands on whatever he could. People in there smoking dried up banana peels. They let them dry up for however long, and then they smoking it. Doing anything and smoking anything and sniffing anything to get some sort of high. And this individual here was coming up to the Native Americans and asking for sage. Now, again, the Native Americans were only 4 to 5 deep, and they didn't bother anyone because they were 4 to 5 deep. They didn't, they wasn't looking for any trouble. And again, they were not with the blacks in the sense that if it was a riot between the blacks and the Southsiders, the Native Americans would jump in, let's say, and support the blacks. No. And so they were on their own and we were on our own. There in prison, we were not together necessarily. There in Corcoran anyway. And so the Native Americans began to take umbrage to this particular white dude approaching them about this sage. they made it clear that they could not give him any. They could not share it, not because they didn't want to, because they're good people, but because the administration made it clear to them. In fact, that may have been why it was taken from them to begin with. And again, they had to fight to get it back. Whatever it was, the administration made it clear to them in explicit terms that if they gave any of this sage to anyone other than a Native American there on the yard, they would revoke those privileges. If they tried to sell it, if they caught someone over there in their area smoking it with them that was not a Native American, then there was going to be hell to pay. So the Native Americans, they didn't want a chance. They were not going to take any chances. So they just telling the white dude, we don't want to lose our privileges of smoking this sage as part of our tradition, our heritage, by giving you something. It's not for you. It's not going to do anything to you like that, man. This, it's not the greenery. Chill out, man. We can't give you any. They refused to give them any because they didn't want to, again, lose the privilege of being able to smoke the stuff there on the yard. But, well, the white guy, he's having withdrawals and he's not taking no for an answer. He's persistent. First, he tried the nice approach, basically begging them to give him some. And when they held strong and said, we refuse to give you any, because they don't know if it's a setup. They don't know if the police sent this dude to see if they're going to give him some. Because then, again, if they share it with anyone, it's over. They'll never be able to have it on the yard again. The police have made this clear. So again, they just don't want to take any chances. So they tell him, no, man, it's not going to happen. But then he gets aggressive. After the nice guy routine doesn't work, he essentially threatens them that if they didn't share it with him, basically they can get their ass up off the yard, knowing that it's only 4 or 5 of them, and that they're not connected to any other faction, any other car. They don't hang out with the Crips, the Bloods, not affiliates, or blacks in general. They're on their own, at least as far as the whites are concerned. But the Native Americans, they did what most people do. They came to the blacks looking for help. And the blacks did what they normally do. They assisted. They offered a helping hand. It's like they're in prison, they're in the Los Angeles County Jail. The blacks will almost accept anyone. I'm not saying that the Native Americans are just anyone, but I'm just saying that they had their own car, their own faction. And it's really not our beef. It's really not our fight. Because these people that we always take up for will not take up for us in these instances. They just don't. We're in there under the gun from everyone, amongst ourselves. The police are attacking us. We get into it with the Southsiders. The whites hate our guts in prison, county jail I'm talking about. And, no one is coming to our aid. But here it is. The others, they know they can just come and join the blacks when it's convenient for them. They're behind the walls. I was against all of this, man. I was pushing that. I was preaching to the blacks. We're not accepting just anyone, man. Just because. The hell with all this nice shit. We got to stop this. That's our problem now. And I'm a good man. I really am. But no. Some of the stuff, no, man. They're taking advantage of us. So anyway, they come to the blacks, as expected. And they let the blacks know that the wood is pressing them for the sage. They explain everything. That they kept resisting, saying no, they couldn't do it. Not because they didn't want to, but because they could not. He was playing nice at first, but now he's really pressing them, saying that if they don't give it up, they got to get up off the yard. So the brothers, a few brothers, the brothers congregated and went over this. We were talking about it. And while we were going over this, many blacks were saying, that's their fight, they're on their own. They don't mess with us. Why would they come to us now for this situation here? They don't mess with us like that. They have nothing against us as far as we can see, and we have nothing against them. But they do they have their own faction, their own car that has nothing to do with us. Why they ain't go ask the Southsiders for help, for that matter? Because they know that we gonna raise our hand to come and help them, and lo and behold, some other blacks there in the meeting while we were congregating, we're like, nah, man, we can't let the whites. It's only 4 or 5 of them, bro. However many whites it is, there's only 4 or 5 of them. 17, 18 whites. The whites are going to try to use weapons. And it's going to be 3, 4 on 1. Nah, man. We have at least let the whites know that these dudes are not alone. That you cannot just attack them and remove them from the yard because they won't give you something that they cannot give you without losing their privileges. They don't owe you anything. They don't have to give you anything. I'm like, yeah, that's true. It's still not our fight, though. Okay, fine. So the brothers finally tell the Native Americans, well, we'll help you, we'll support you, but you got to kick it off. You got to handle, we're not finna go kick it off with the whites because y'all have a problem with them because they're pressing y'all for y'all product. If you stand up for yourself, if you fight back and you go and attack the whites and they start getting the best of y'all, if all of the whites jump in and start attacking y'all, then we will assist. We will have some blacks there on standby to jump in so that it is at least fair. So some brothers were saying, well, let's go let the whites know that we got these Native Americans back. And maybe that'll just solve it and they'll stop pressing them or whatever. And some others was like, no, we ain't got to tell them that we got their back. Let the Native Americans handle it. If they want to, they can come out and kick it off with them. And if they do, then and if they're outnumbered like they are, and all of the whites are jumping in, then we'll have their back. We don't have to let the whites know that we got their back. We'll just show them when it's time. So that was the final call. That was the final decision not to say anything. Let's see what the Native Americans are going to do. They are quiet. They're on the yard. They don't bother anyone. I don't see them walking around huffing and puffing, carrying weapons, using drugs. They're not doing any of this. They really stay to themselves. There's only a few of them, and they congregate right there on the yard every night and smoke their sage. So I'm not sure. Are they going to even be aggressive? Are they really going to kick it off with the whites? It's only a few of them. They seem to be real peaceful. But I don't underestimate anyone. But I'm just saying, I don't know. But we wanted to find out. And we told them they had to let us know if it was, but don't just come out and kick it off. And we don't know what's going on. Let us know beforehand if y'all really going to go there. Then we can be prepared to have y'all back. And then the night before, they indeed did come to the brothers and said that they had made a decision that they indeed were going to attack the whites, that the whites had crossed the line, this particular individual anyway, and that the rest of the whites did not do anything to resolve the situation. They didn't check their people. And instead, making it seem like we're doing something wrong, saying that we got to get up off the yard. So we feel like our backs are against the wall and we have to stand up for ourselves. They're trying to punk us. Okay, well, as we said, kick it off and we'll be there if necessary. When is this going down? In the morning at yard. Cool. Yard comes in the morning. Everybody walking around the track. People doing their workout, regular yard routine. Everybody's watching the Native Americans, at least the brothers are. The ones who are really designated, assigned to assist if necessary. They have weapons. They're watching the Native Americans' backs. The decision has been made that we're going to have their back in this situation if they kick it off. And the Native Americans, They confirmed it that morning on the yard. The plan is still in place. We are going to kick it off right here on the yard this morning. We do have weapons. And we're going to stand up for our manhood. Okay, fine. The play is on. We still have y'all back. The Woods, they were about 12 deep or so in the yard at this time. It's about 18, 19, 20 of them on the entire yard. But, they doing top tier in the morning, bottom tier in the afternoon, whatever. Not everyone is on the yard. Certain buildings are let out, etc. at one time. So not all of the Woods on the yard. It's just about 12 of them. But not all of the Native Americans are out there either. It's 3 of them. And so there's still 12 whites out there who certainly have weapons as far as everyone is concerned. But the Native Americans, they steeled themselves knowing that they had backup. They attacked. The whites were over there at the table. The Native Americans were walking around the track, the 3 of them, and they veered off the track and ran into the crowd of the whites. The main individual who was pressing the issue from the beginning was there, and he was their target, and they got on him. But the rest of the whites, they indeed did jump in, as if they were waiting on it. But I don't think that they expected the blacks to have their backs. But it wasn't the whole yard of blacks that attacked, because it's 100 blacks out there, 150 blacks. It's 12 whites. So it was just going to be fair. It was just going to be, 8 or 9, 10 blacks that was going to help out the Native Americans if they needed the help. They was just going to make it even. And that's exactly what happened. The blacks ran over there. It was the ones that was already designated to run over there and assist, which is about 8, 9, 10 of them. And everybody else is just like, okay, let them handle it. Could have jumped in and really made a mess of the situation. But the brothers really stood down, just had the Native Americans' backs, and let the few blacks, the few Native Americans team up and go at it with the whites. But it was even. The brothers really played fair in that situation, because once the decision was made to go ahead and assist them, it could have got ugly, because there's a lot of blacks on the yard and it's just a few whites on the yard. But that's not what transpired. The brothers kept it fair. They 8, 9, 10 of them ran over there. They did pull out weapons though, and they began to attack the whites. They had the Native Americans' backs. And the whites were not expecting this clearly. You can tell by their reaction. Some of them tried to get out of the way. Most of them were fighting back because, it was fair, it was even. And they saw that the rest of the blacks, they weren't, they yelled, get down. Everybody got down. And so it was just them still up. If they yelled, get down, but if it's on with the people that it's on with. So they still stood up and was going at it. The Native Americans, the blacks, and the whites, even though they yelled, get down. But the whites could see that the rest of the brothers on the yard had got down. That they're not about to come over there and jump in with the Native Americans and the other blacks over there and assault us. They're about to just let the ones that's here handle it. And that was true. Everybody else got out and let them handle it. And it was on. And the Native Americans, they took care of business. They realized they had backup. They didn't bow down. They was yelling, get down. The tower was yelling, get down. They're shooting the gas out. But they stood up. They did not get down. They stood up and continued to squabble. They continued to assault with weapons, and they continued to war. They continued to fight. They continued the melee. It wasn't necessarily a riot. It was more like a melee. But it was a violent one. And the brothers in that situation had the Native Americans' backs, and they all, got up out of there, went to the hole or what have you, and they did the little lockdown, and everything cool. Is it going to continue? No, it's over with, man. Just something that had to happen, okay. And that was it. Came off a lockdown, some more. They brought more whites on the yard, but it didn't continue from there. It was a one-shot Erskine. But the brothers, per normal, jumping in and assisting I'm not tooting the black man's horn and saying that we come to everybody's, but I'm just saying, I'm not even saying it's a good thing. Hell, we got to fight for our damn selves. We don't do that enough. We don't fight for each other enough. I'm just saying, we're too quick sometimes to want to assist everyone else but ourselves. Stay free, people.